With Dr. James Kramer at the Murphy Wainer Orthopedic Specialists doctor's offices today. Dr. Kramer, first of all, good to see you again. I hope you're doing well, and busy time right now for a lot of people here in the summer, although sometimes school's out. There's still a lot of activity going on. What's some of the things some of the athletes are involved with right now during this certain phase of summer?
Yeah, so right now, even though high school, the academic year is over, football in particular is pretty much year-round training now. So all of our area high schools, football in the summertime does daily workouts. They also do 7-on-7 tournaments. And so all the high school football teams are really practicing year-round and through this summer. Similarly, high school basketball, there's summer basketball, so all the high schools are involved in summer basketball tournaments through the school. But then also a lot of the kids also play summer ball or AAU ball that's not affiliated with the school, but the high schools even now have sort of summertime basketball leagues that they get involved in.
Do you get to go to and visit any of the big 7-on-7 activities?
I do the 7-on-7, the big ones. I'm the team doctor over at James D. Dudley High School, and so if we host a 7-on-7, I'll usually go over and kind of get involved with that tournament. So yeah, they're pretty fun.
And you think about the weather right now, what do you tell those that are out running and working out in this kind of weather? Because outside it's pretty tough today.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a football issue in the summer, and it's not only now and coming into July, but when practice officially starts in August, with the games starting, August 18th this year. It's all about heat. You know, that's the main thing. You've got levels of heat issues ranging from, heat illness, heat exhaustion, heat stroke. There's levels of your internal body temperature as it gets elevated is more significantly serious. And so we do all we can to control that. The main thing we do is we check what's called a wet bulb temperature. The certified athletic trainers at our high schools check the temperature as it relates to the humidity, and there are guidelines that are followed based on that number. If it goes above a certain number, practice is canceled. There's no practice that day. If it's within the range, then they're allowed to practice. If it's the medium range, then they have to have certified water breaks every so often, because you want to make sure everyone's staying hydrated. Obviously when it's hot, you're sweating more, and so hydration is pretty huge.
I was out there doing a little running this morning, kind of got the impression about today's weather was tough because there was no sun mainly, but there was a lot of clouds, a lot of humidity. It was almost like the Charlie Griffin effect. Remember Charlie Griffin, the Western Guilford coach, who passed away a few years ago? I was thinking today, and plus jogging by one place, they mowed the yard there. You could smell the mowed grass, and mowed grass with humidity seems like it makes it even worse to run through those kind of things.
Oh, correct. So a lot of times a fair amount of schools choose to do early morning workouts, like it's pretty unusual at this time in the summer for high school football teams to be practicing midday. A lot of teams practice from 7 to 9 or 10, or they'll do it in the evenings from 6 to 9, 6 to 8, or something like that. So rarely are we holding practices midday when the temperatures are the warmest.
And it was a rough one today. Thinking about that coming up with the All-Star games. It'll be coming up soon in July, less than a month away.
Yeah, exactly. It's July 17, 18, 19. So this year it'll be the last year of the regular format where there is basketball, soccer, and football. That happens this year for the class of 2022, but then this December we get a second round of high school all-star games, because the 2023 football class, that game will actually be held in December of this year, and then moving forward it'll be basketball and soccer in July, and the football games are going to be held in December.
So you know that pretty well. Who do you keep up with at the Coaches Association? Yourself and Phil Weaver and others?
Yeah, all those guys. And then really I've known Tim Vai for a long time. So Tim was a trainer at Page High School for years, and teacher, and he's now retired. But he's involved with high school All-Star Week, and so Tim has been my primary contact just from the medical perspective of things. Tim's who I'm mostly involved with, but I've known, worked with Phil for years.
And you attend the football games, I know, at other games too.
Yeah, we attend the football games. We have a primary care sports medicine fellowship in our office, which is training a doctor to get into office orthopedics as a family practice doctor. And so our fellow every year attends all the basketball games, all the soccer games, as well as the football games, and then us as attendings pretty much do the football games. I've been involved with high school basketball for years, and I tend to go to the basketball game as well.
What about the movement of the new video scoreboard at Dudley? I know Murphy Wainer is involved with that too, and that seems like to be something that would be pretty big for Dudley.
Yeah,
that scoreboard sometimes you want to get it right, and I think they will with this new scoreboard. It sounds
absolutely, like. There's a lot of energy behind it. It's going to be a great, huge addition. We've been hoping to have one for years, and the Booster Club and Staley Vinson is behind the movement to basically raise money to have the scoreboard done. We're hoping to have it for this next upcoming year. I and we are contributing. We're raising money for it. We're trying to be on par to this type of scoreboards that you would see at Grimsley, Northern, and Page all have the newer, really nice electronic scoreboards. And so hopefully at Dudley, we'll be having the same type of really nice entertainment at the football game.
It should be nice, and I know whoever is tasked with running that scoreboard, they get it all straight, because you got to be right. These new scoreboards for sure.
Exactly.
What about going back to some baseball talk from last year? We have that Jack Herman injury, and we know hadn't heard anything of Jack yet this year, what he's up to this year, how he turned out after the injury. But you told me, talking about injuries of baseball, since it's baseball season, that might have been one of the worst you'd ever seen.
That's right. I've been covering the local professional baseball team now for 30 years, and the vast majority of medical interaction are overuse injuries. A pitcher who has a sore shoulder or a sore elbow, it's that sort of thing. In-game injury or trauma, like we would tend to see in football, is much more rare in baseball. And so last season, Jack, unfortunately, had a devastating injury to his lower leg. He had both bones in his lower leg were broken. It was a very, very serious injury. He's had multiple surgeries. He's now under the care of the Pirates medical staff, and since he has departed Greensboro, unfortunately I don't have any follow-up to know how he's doing, but at the time it was a minimum of a year before he was going to be able to return to play. Hopefully he's doing well. I just don't have any follow-up.
Quick follow-up on that question. How important, it's got to be very important, the own staff, people at that site, the Grasshoppers medical team, what they do before you get there, the EMTs get there, is very important too. It's split-second reaction, because I think they put an air split on him to try to get him stabilized.
Correct.
That is probably so important too, what they do before the actual medical people get there.
Yes, it's all about having a certified athletic trainer. I mean, the Grasshoppers have a certified athletic trainer. They're employed through the Pirates baseball organization. They're on site. They're dealing with the non-traumatic overuse rehab of players that are injured, but they're also there to deal with emergencies. And so it was handled probably as efficiently as it ever could have been last year, with appropriate splinting. EMS was contacted. He was brought to the local hospital. I think we had him in the operating room within 2 hours of his injury.
Outstanding. Kind of a follow-up to that follow-up. If I've always thought about this, I want to ask you this question. I mean, I can actually ask this because we're got a good conversation going here. If you show up on maybe an accident scene, you're not, it's not your requirement to go there or whatever, you just happen to pop up on the scene, somebody's injured, how much can you do to help out? If they, maybe not even a mobility issue, they're cut up, they're hurt, they're injured, how much can you do to help there if you show up on an accident and nobody else is there yet?
Well, I mean, there's certain things you always want to do. I mean, first you want to assess for life-threatening injuries. So you want to, it's the ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation. So you're doing essential basic life support. If it's not that serious, it's a lot of it's just making sure a patient is calm, they're more relaxed. You just address what they may or may not need. If it's calling 911 or getting an ambulance on scene, you can coordinate that. If there's certain trauma, again, you can do various types of splints or ways that you can try to, make something out of what you have in hand to be able to do that. So, sure, as doctors, we're there to help anybody who's hurt or injured, and so if that happens in a civilian environment, yeah, absolutely. We're helped to do all that we can to make sure that a person's not, number one, severely injured and they get appropriate care.
So fall right in and help out?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about looking at always ask this question too, I know how important water is, but so many people, they like water, but sometimes they get bored drinking water. They want to drink Cheerwine, Dr. Pepper, Coke, Pepsi, any other drinks like that, and even the good Sun Drop is good these days, even a little Mountain Dew. But how important is water versus those drinks and even the energy drinks and stuff like that? How important is water first?
Our recommendation when it comes to hydration in the heat of summer, water is number one, by far the most important thing. We do not recommend regular soda or diet soda or anything in the realm of soda. They actually can be dehydrating. So for people who don't really like the taste of regular water, there are lots of other alternatives that are out there, not just so much energy drinks, but for instance, Pedialyte. It's a basically water that has electrolyte mixtures in it. And so Gatorade falls in that same category. A lot of people have a hard time with Gatorade because it has a fair amount of sugar in it. So like for instance, I recommend now Gator Light, the sort of the light form of the Gatorade, which has electrolytes and it has salt in it, but doesn't have the dehydrating effects of all the more significant bad things that are in any kind of sodas. So any kind of water, there are various electrolyte powders, there's electrolyte liquids you can put in water to flavor water. So all those things are good and way better than drinking soda for sure.
So first priority, if you can get the water, use that first as much as you can.
Absolutely.
So the high school seasons are going to be upon us pretty soon, the fall seasons. What kind of injuries can we look for football and other sports for the fall coming up?
So football, you're looking at a couple of things that's most common in my experience. We always are dealing with concussions. Concussion is a fact of life, and when it comes to football, so concussions are one thing. And then when it comes to injuries, you're looking at shoulder and knee. Those are the two orthopedic things we see. Shoulder injuries, whether it's an acute injury where it's a fracture, broken bone, or it coming out of socket. And then obviously knee injuries are very common, whether it's a bone or fracture, but oftentimes ligament injuries is what we oftentimes see when it comes to acute football injuries, whether it relates to the knee.
What about a volleyball player? Just popping out off the top of my head, what kind of injuries would they have maybe?
Volleyball is going to have overuse problems with their shoulder because of the overhead hitting that's involved with volleyball. When it comes to traumatic injuries, it's either going to be knee or ankle mostly because it's a jumping sport. So you come down from jumping, you land awkwardly, so you twist or roll your ankle. You can also awkwardly twist or torque your knee when it's a stopping and starting sport. So traumatic injuries, volleyball, ankle, knee. Non-traumatic overuse, typically shoulder.
Like you said, most concerns, these are the high priority concerns, are the concussions. They have to be for the different sports. And they can happen in more than just football, too.
That's true. I mean, football is by far where it's most commonly seen. We see a fair amount of concussions in soccer. That's also a sport that we see concussions in, pretty frequently.
Yeah, I can see it in soccer just as you're talking, head-to-head contact, going for a ball or something like that.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Right.
This is off the subject a little bit, it's still kind of on the table. I was reading today on a professional wrestling site about it was Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania 30, and it was so bad a concussion there that the Undertaker said after the introduction, I don't remember anything about the match. After I got hit, I got dropped the first part of the match. I got on my neck and my back. The concussion was so bad, I can't tell you what happened. It can be that bad sometimes.
It can be that bad. I mean, in the older days, we used to grade or classify concussions. If someone had the classic ding, where they just had a transient mild headache, to levels of amnesia, for instance, where he said he couldn't remember things, or if you're actually frankly knocked out or briefly lose consciousness. We used to classify the severity of a concussion based on those symptoms. Now we treat a concussion as a concussion. Any transient head injury that creates any of those symptoms we treat as a concussion. They're all treated the same.
In the old days too, and you hear it more now, some still, when you got hit in the shoulder, say you got a stinger, is a stinger more serious than maybe just a stinger these days, or is it still just a slight injury?
A one-time stinger is really nothing to be overly alarmed or concerned about, and even though you get hit in your shoulder, a stinger is it's a traction injury to the root of the nerve in the side of your neck. So the mechanism is hitting your shoulder, which awkwardly puts a stress to the side of the neck, causing nerve root injury. Stingers are almost always transient. It's just a temporary blip. The symptoms immediately recover. And so a one-time stinger, nothing to really be worried about. When athletes have recurrent stingers, that's more concerning, and we want to make sure there's not a structural problem in their cervical spine.
Finally, for us today, we talk so much about baseball, and the thing that always gets me about baseball is the hamate bone. When they get hit the hamate bone, it's like in a hand somewhere, and they wear so many braces they think they can't even get hit, but they do get popped there sometimes, and that could be just a basic little injury that sometimes can lead to maybe 4 to 6 weeks of them missing action. How's that so?
Correct. So the hamate bone is a little bone that sticks on this side of your wrist right here, and it has a hook to it. And there's 2 ways that that bone breaks, and why it's common in both baseball and golf. You're holding an instrument in your hand, which is a fulcrum in that area. And so oftentimes in baseball, it's not so much a direct blow from a ball, but it's a check swing. So you have a check swing, you immediately stop the motion of your wrist. There's a fulcrum of the bat right on where the hook of the hamate sits. Just like in a golf swing, if you ground your club on the ground and have immediate impact with the club on that area, that hamate bone, or the hook of the hamate, can break, and it's very difficult to heal. And so typically when that occurs, oftentimes the hand specialists remove that hook part of the bone. It solves the problem, but you're right, it's a 4 to 6 week injury, and then unfortunately it's oftentimes misdiagnosed at the beginning, so it tends to nag, and so it can ultimately, particularly in a baseball player, I mean, it can be a couple of months before they're really recovered and back to their normal ability to play.
And what's so crazy, they're walking around and they're just got a basic injury, say I can't play. But they can walk around, they can do everything normal, but that one little piece just completely shuts them down.
It's very sport specific, because when the injury is right here and you can't hold a bat, you can't play, so it's just one of those things. It's very specific to the sport they do.
Talking about moves and changes and all the whatnot here and there, I know from your standpoint, you may be making some changes soon too, I guess, down the road as things get ready to go.
I am. I have been involved in sports medicine in this community since 1989. And I'm going to be phasing out of my day-to-day work in the office at Murphy Wainer Orthopedics. I'm going to be spending most of my time doing after-hours walk-in urgent care clinics, which we have here in our office. So it's phasing out, taking more time off, and getting close to fully retirement. Not quite yet, but close.
Well, you put your time in, time well served. And I mean, just seeing you so many places at Dudley, Greensboro Day, Greensboro College, all these years, I mean, you put it in there. So you've definitely earned this time to step back a little bit, I know.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been a great ride. I've been in love with my job for years, and I've loved it. I'm gonna miss the sports medicine outreach for sure.
You made some great connections though with a lot of people. You've seen a lot of people come and go too, I know.
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
Dr. Kramer, your time is precious. Thank you for it. We appreciate your time and appreciate your service, what you've done over the years. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate it.